So, my fourth article is why some platforms thrive and others don't. So, this was written by Feng Zhu and Marco Iansiti. Okay. So, this topic particularly focuses on digital network businesses. So, understanding the networks a platform is embedded in and the factors affecting growth and sustainability of platform firms and how they differ from traditional firms. So on many digital network businesses, the cost of serving additional user is negligible, which makes it easier for businesses to scale up. Like for example, na si Grab. Um, wala naman siyang additional apart from infra, they don't have to change a whole lot from their offering to in order to cater additional customers. So it's easier for them to scale. So its operational complexity is outsourced to the service providers, Grab drivers, Grab food, yung mga restaurants, and Grab ano yun, market or yung pabili ba yun? Yun. Oh, so on the platform or handled by the software, yung Grab app, to value creation and growth. So they aren't tied up to human or organizational factors, which is sa traditional models is important. Also, the employees themselves don't deliver the products and services. Yung employees mismo ni Grab, they just design and oversee an automated algorithm driven operation, so they just have to make sure that the application is accessible, and they just have to make yun yung customer support, syempre it's there, pero the rest of the operations is done by their the other members of their ecosystem. So the competitive advantage of these digital networks depends on the platform and the network it is orchestrated. So less on internal firm level factors. So while it is easy for these firms to scale up, it is difficult to sustain it. So it's two different things. One is to scale and one is to sustain it. So because their advantages are also the same as those with their competitors. So we go back to the question. So why some platforms thrive and others don't? Sorry. So the answer lies on the company's ability to manage the five fundamental properties of networks. So this will also be the outline of this presentation. So the five fundamental properties of networks is strength of network effects, network clustering, risk of intermediation, vulnerability to multi-homing, and network bridging. So let's go with them to go through them one by one. So the first one is the strength of network effects. So we already know that network effects is important. But we also have to consider the strength of that network because it can shape the value creation and the capturing of that value. So when the network effects are strong, the value provided by a platform rises with the number of participants. So for example, Facebook, as the number of users on Facebook increases, dumadami rin yung amount and variety of what they can offer to these users. For example, si TikTok. As habang dumadami yung gumagamit ng TikTok, dumadami din yung content nila. Mas marami ring na-attract na ibang users which will also join the network and then join the parang it's a yun nga, it's a network. So it parang yung effect niya is continuous. So on the other hand, weak network effects needs few hits to be successful. So an example of this is video consoles. So they are a hit-driven business. So they don't necessarily have to have a lot of games. They just have to have the right game, which makes it easier for entrants to steal market share from incumbents. So an example of this is when Microsoft Xbox entered the video console industry in 2001. Um ang main competition nila was PlayStation 2, which is the incumbent. So the two were taking the lead alternatively for the years because yun nga, they have the same network and they have the same market. So the strength of the network can change over time. And when the incumbent's network's effect weaken, so does the market position. So an example of this is Microsoft Windows. So dati, si Microsoft, what they're offering, their network effects were strong because all the applications or client base, lahat you have to install in the machine, 'di ba? But ayan na, nagkaroon tayo ng internet. So, applications can be accessed online. Everything is online already, lalo na with the cloud, no? And so, the network effect lessened kay Microsoft. Ngayon, nakapasok tuloy si Android tsaka si iOS. So that's an example of how the strength of the network affects the companies. So the next one is network clustering. So an example of this case is Airbnb and Uber. So when the network is fragmented into local clusters like Uber, so they are isolated from one another. The more they are vulnerable, the more vulnerable a business is to challenges. So, let's start with Uber. So, for example, drivers in a city, kunwari a local, Metro Manila, they are only concerned with the riders in Metro Manila and vice versa. So, they are local clusters. So, this makes it easier for another ride-sharing business or service to reach critical mass in another local market. For example, magkaroon ng another Uber sa Cebu. It's easier to penetrate that same service because it's locally clustered. So in comparison, is Airbnb. Their market is more global. So travelers don't just look at local Airbnbs. Siguro sometimes. Pero they look at other cities and other countries. So given this, for any competitor who of Airbnb who wants to get into that market, they need to reach the global scale that Airbnb has already have right now, which is not easy. Kasi they have to build awareness around the world to attract both the hosts, the ones who will want to rent their property, and the travelers who will rent that property. But since Airbnb has been doing this for I don't know how long, um, the any competitor who wants to compete with Airbnb has to go through that the same. And by that time, at the same time, Airbnb is already growing. So in order for them to reach the capacity that Airbnb is already in, it will be harder for them. So that's the effect of the network clustering. In terms of how competitors will be able to reach the same markets. So the next one is the risk of disintermediation. So disintermediation is defined by a network when a network member bypass a hub and connect directly. So an example in the article is HomeJoy platform. So this application disconnects house cleaners to households. So it is easier. For example, um, I hired a helper, a house cleaner from HomeJoy. And if nagustuhan ko yung service ng house cleaner, I'm not gonna go through HouseJoy again in order to avail her service. I will just contact her directly. Kasi may additional fees pa yan. And this also applies with the local gawin.ph. I don't know if you've used that already because we used that. And we did the exact same thing. We hired a tubero, I think. Yes, we hired an electrician pala. We hired an electrician through the app. But even before starting the service, parang the electrician himself said na parang, cancel na lang yung sa app, tapos kami na lang mag-usap directly. So, we didn't have to go through yung application or yung platform ni Gawin.ph in order to transact. So, nawala, hindi na na-capture ni Gawin.ph yung value that they would get from me and the electrician. Kasi there's little incentive for the user to return to the platform. So, in this case, si Homejoy, my first example, shut down in 2015 after just 5 years of operations. So, platforms have developed mechanisms to prevent it with varied results. Not everything survived, no. So, the first one is creating terms of service prohibiting transactions of the platform. So, for example, Airbnb, they don't provide yung exact location of the host and the phone numbers until nakabayad ka na. So that way, they are protected. They can't directly contact the property. Unless, of course, after, if they want to go back. Pero kasi, if you're just traveling, 'di ba, you'll just go there one time. Those are exceptions na. But in this way, they were able to protect their platform into capturing that value from the customers. So the second is enhancing the value of conducting business on them. So for example, Thumbtack, this is in the US. So it's a marketplace that's connecting consumers with local service providers. For example, electricians, guitar teachers, and what they charge for is providing the lead. So if, for example, a customer, they will post a request on the site like, I need an electrician. So the service provider, si Thumbtack, they send this customer to the service providers. And they pay si Thumbtack, yung service providers, they pay Thumbtack so that they can reply to the customer. So doon, nakuha na nila yung value before even the two of them agreed on the service that they want. Pero syempre, after that initial contact, sila na yung bahala how they will transact. Wala na si, ano, yung long term, hindi nakasali si Thumbtack. And then another example is providing complementary services. So an example of this is ZBJ. It is a Chinese outsourcing marketplace that can lose 90% of its business to this intermediation. But what they did is that they focused their business on a complementary service that wasn't their real focus in the start. Pero parang ginawa na nilang focus yun kasi na-realize nila that this is what the customers are coming back for. So yun, because of that, many new business owners came to them, and now they are valued at 1.5 billion according to according to the article. Okay, so the fourth one is vulnerability to multi-homing. Now, ito naman, si multi-homing is when users or service providers form ties with multiple platforms at the same time. So ito, a favorite example ko kasi si Grab. Um, in the ride-hailing industry, like Grab, drivers and riders, no, at least before, no, they can use both Grab and Uber. Riders can compare prices and wait yung wait times for drivers, it can reduce their idle time. Pag walang nagbo-book sa kanila sa Grab, meron pa silang Uber, pwede silang magbiyahe agad. And another example is for app developers, and they develop their products for both iOS and Androids. So to encourage exclusivity, Uber and Lyft gave bonuses to people who completed a certain number of trips in a row without rejecting or canceling and going offline during peak hours. So, they also provided new pickup requests from nearby passengers to reduce idle time for drivers. So in this way, they were able to provide incentives to the drivers and the riders, no, so they don't submit to the multi-homing. So the companies can capture the value of from that customer. Yet low cost of adopting multi-platform and multi-homing is still rampant in ride sharing, even after providing these incentives. So, for example, console makers often sign exclusive contract deals with game publishers. On the user side naman, they can't necessarily avail yung multi-homing kasi they have, syempre mahal din yung console. Unless they're rich, they can buy all the different consoles, Xbox, PlayStation. And there's also subscription services that these are what they use to reduce yung multi-homing in that industry. Okay, so the last one is network bridging. So, in many situations, the best network strategy for a platform may be to connect different networks to one another. So, in any platform business, their success lies on acquiring high number of users and amassing data on interactions. So, for example, si Amazon and Alibaba. Alibaba talaga is one of their favorite examples when it comes to ecosystems and platforms. No? So Alibaba bridged its payment platform, Alipay, with its e-commerce platform, Taobao, and Tmall, providing a much-needed service to both buyers and sellers, fostering trust between them. So their transaction and user data was also used to develop Ant Financial. Ito naman yung financial service arm ni Alibaba. So this includes credit rating systems for merchants and consumers. So because they have this credit rating system, they are able to issue short-term consumer loans and also merchant loans with very low rates. Nagkaroon sila ng system that will allow them to compute how much they can. This is also in one of the reports, no, I remember. um they have a system or an AI or a machine learning system that can figure out how much they can loan to the seller based on the data that they have. And based on for a merchant, based on their inventory and on their sales, because they have that data. And all the merchant has to do is to allow Alibaba to or Ant Financial to access their data. So in accessing their data, they can be able to evaluate if they can provide the loan to the merchant or even the consumer. If they see the track record of the consumer, syempre kapag bago lang, they won't. But if they know that it's been a long time consumer and it's been paying good, or it's been buying a lot, and they know that in providing that additional funds for the merchant and the buyer, sa kanila rin babalik yung value kasi sa kanila din bibili, sa kanila din magbebenta. So in this way, Alibaba is able to capture the entire value of providing these products and services into their platform. So the networks mutually reinforce one another's market positions, helping each network sustain its scale. So, in conclusion, so when evaluating an opportunity involving platform, first is analyze the basic properties of the networks and consider the ways to strengthen the network effects. Also, evaluate the feasibility of minimizing multi-homing and building global network structures using network bridging to sustain scale and mitigating the risk of disintermediation. So for investors and entrepreneurs, when evaluating an opportunity involving platform, it is important to eliminate the key challenges of growing and sustaining the platform and help business people develop more realistic assessments of the platform's potential to capture value. That's all. Thank you.